Over at BangTheBook.com, we've got all 4 NFL Divisional Round game previews. We've got a preview for this weekend's golf event. We'll have updated power ratings later in the week from Danny Vorgs, daily NHL picks from Parker Michaels, daily college basketball picks from Kyle Hunter. We got a lot of great stuff going on over there. Please make sure that you head on over to BangTheBook.com and check that out. Also, we're doing great things on our YouTube page. So go to YouTube.com, search Bang the Book, put that in your bookmarks, subscribe, whatever it is that you do. I do videos 6 days a week over there, and we get a couple of videos each week from Brian Blessing as well. So some good video content going on over there on our YouTube page. Our free pick contest is still going on at BangTheBook.com as always. And, of course, as you know, this and every edition of Bang the Book Radio presented by our friends over at DSI Sportsbook. BTB200 is the promo code. Good for a 100% deposit match bonus up to $500. Same thing for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. 2 guests on the program here today. The first, Brian Blessing, the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. Brian, how's it going today, man?
Hey, Adam, how are you, bud? Hope the holidays were good. Good to be back with you.
Good to have you back on the program here. Hope you enjoyed your holidays as well. Yeah, I was just realizing it's been 3 weeks since we've had you on the show here. Everything going well?
Everything's awesome, bud. I doing this with you. We did keep doing our videos. I know we're going to get to the golf eventually, but hopefully 2019 is a good year, and we get some good feedback on Twitter, knock on wood. My favorite, the Masters, and then I really do love the Kapalua thing with the return of golf because you're kind of starved for it, but I love the course and the fact that there's no cut. And I'm kicking myself for 4 days and 71 holes. I was going to play Gary Woodland, but I did have a play on Xander Schauffele, and it was a bleeding ulcer at the end, but he got there at 20-1, so a nice way to start the golf season.
Yeah, final round 62 for Schauffele. Hopefully that's a good omen for the rest of the golf season here. We will talk about the Sony Open in Hawaii. I know you've got some pretty strong thoughts and a good set of players that you like for that one, so we'll touch on that a little bit later in the segment. But let's go ahead and dive into the divisional round here, Brian. We'll start things off right away with Saturday's first game, Indianapolis and Kansas City. A lot of 5.5s out there now. This number opened at 4. Saw Kansas City money come in pretty quickly. What do you think about the move?
I understand that there's going to be a lot of professional love, I do believe, for Indy as the week progresses. The one thing is the movement's not that big, Adam. When you're in that 4.5, 5.5 range, it's such a dead number. It can go back and forth. And, it looks like, maybe something's steaming. You watch the thing pinball back and forth. I don't think this thing steams in any way, shape, or form. I think when we get to the end of the week, I think you'll see sharp money on Indianapolis. And then on game day, you'll see Kansas City and over money. So in terms of the number, I think it's a function of that 5.5 number. I would say this to you, bud. And I'm checking it real quick as we speak. This, to me, is all about the weather. I really like what both teams are doing right now. Here it's 50. It was 63 yesterday. It's 52 today. On Saturday, it's going to be 39 degrees, maybe with some snow flurries. But if there's no wind, I don't see there's any way. And I know Indy's defense is playing really good. So let's cut to the chase. Kansas City's going to get theirs. And Kansas City's defense is so. I think this has track meet written all over it. I like the over.
Yeah, right now it looks like it is a pretty slim chance of a rain-snow mix. Not a whole lot of accumulation there with that. The wind does not look bad. I know you mentioned that in the video. We talked about that a little bit on yesterday's show as well, that, Arrowhead can be a pretty windy place, but it looks like that won't be too much of a factor here this week. This is a tough game for me, and really all 4 of these games this weekend are very challenging for me. I feel like I had much better positions on the wild card weekend as opposed to the divisional weekend here. The bye week helps Kansas City a lot because Travis Kelce was dinged up. Tyreek Hill was banged up. That was very, very clear. I wrote about that in my preview. And then you had an Indianapolis team last week that, it's been all about Andrew Luck this year. And then Andrew Luck really wasn't great on Saturday, but the defense played well and Marlon Mack played really well. So a Colts team that won in a different fashion than they have for most of the season, that breeds some confidence. But a Kansas City team that didn't have to play last week won't be playing a third straight road game like the Colts are and got a bye to get healthy. I think really it's all about, from a handicapping standpoint, what you value the most about this game.
Yeah, well, I think, to not be overly influenced by what we last saw, I mean, that game was goofy, right? Indy jumps out of the gate. If Houston scores before the half and they squandered an opportunity and then would have gotten the ball to start the second, I mean, that would have been a ball game. But Indy gets the big lead. So it was all about run and stop the run and keep the clock running, and Mac had a big game. This is a different animal here. I mean, Mahomes is going to run around. Yeah, he may make a mistake or two against that defense, but who's kidding who? I mean, I don't know. I mean, can you envision Indy holding Kansas City to less than, let's say, I don't know, I would think the bare minimum would be 27 points that you'd hold Kansas City to at home. And I think the nature of the game will be different. If Indy gets behind, Luck will be throwing it a lot more. There'll be a lot more possessions. I just think it's apples and watermelons how this game's going to be played compared to how Indy played a game last week.
No, I completely agree. And something I'm kind of looking at here, both in this game with Indianapolis and the Chargers in New England game, the early game on Sunday, I may look to play the dog in the first half of both of those games. But playing a third straight road game, now obviously for Indianapolis it's not as bad because they haven't gone cross-country and back twice like the Chargers have. But when you're running around trying to cover this Kansas City offense, it's tiring. And this Colts defense, Joe Everett talked about on yesterday's show, Darius Leonard looks a little bit gassed. And they are a defense that relies a lot on some younger players to play in really big roles. I think if you like Indy in this game, I'd look for them in the first half. And then Kansas City, maybe a live bet or a second half position on them.
Yeah, no, I agree. Then again, on the way in, I don't disagree with that at all. But if KC, comes out of the gate and they're smoking them, then it's one of those things where even they will take their foot off the pedal, and there's an opportunity for Indy in the second half. That's the beauty of in-play wagering and halftime wagering. And I'm with you, bud. To me, I believe in both of these teams. So, to me, the safer thing, and this is at least me, is how will the game be played? What is the pace of play of the game? And to me, it's an up-tempo game. I think both teams can get chunk yardage with the running game. I mean, here's the thing: if Indy says, "Well, how are we going to defend this guy?" I mean, don't forget the prop wagers that are out there that are big opportunities. If Indy's defense is coming in here, all right, we're going to try to make Mahomes make a mistake, young kid, first time on the big stage. They could be playing nickel and dime defense. Seriously, out of the gate, making him throw into coverage. If that's the case, and they read this, the Damian Williams kid could go bananas. I mean, you have to run when they're playing nickel and dime.
Well, unbeknownst to you, that's actually where I was going to go next, was mentioning something regarding the props market here. The Colts allowed the most passing yards in the NFL by 159 to tight ends this season. Tight ends, 106 catches, 133 targets, 1,234 yards. Travis Kelce should have plenty of open room in this game here for Kansas City. So that is a prop that you may want to look at. One other thing I'll mention, we'll probably talk about this a little bit more throughout the week here. Joe Everett mentioned this on yesterday's show. Colts GM Chris Ballard, Director of Player Personnel for the Chiefs in 2013 and 14, Director of Football Ops in 2015 and 16. So the Colts should have everything they need from a scouting report standpoint. We'll see if that gives them any kind of edge here in this matchup. But, Brian, let's move on. Go ahead.
Real quick, and we can maybe bleed into the Chargers game. I know Dallas is next in the rotation. But we had talked about that all last week. And it absolutely came into play. And that was the Chargers. I go back to when the Wildcat was kicked in with the Dolphins, and it worked for 7 weeks. No one could stop it. The next year they tried it. They couldn't get a first down. It's because people got tape on it. And we said last week, how big an advantage might it be for the Chargers coming into this game? It's one thing to see Lamar Jackson running around, chasing him in the speed, and the guy makes plays with his feet, and he was lighting up the league. Well, the fact that they had played against him, they got a read on some of his tendencies and some of the things they knew they could do that would mystify the kid, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, and the only points they got was when they went to that idiotic defense at the end of the game. So your point about, working knowledge is not something to be taken lightly.
Well, and we can talk about that a little bit here in the second game on Saturday as well between Dallas and the Rams. Rams, a touchdown favorite, minus $1.15, pretty much market-wide. Pinnacle and Matchbook are at 7.5, though, but you are getting plus money if you lay the Rams minus 7.5. So we'll see where this line ends up settling. But this is another one here, Brian, where Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams, offensive coordinator for 3 years with the Redskins. Not to say that Dallas's personnel is completely the same, but the DC is still the same in Rod Marinelli. So the Rams, a pretty good head start here for this game.
Yeah, this game's pretty simple to me, and that's we're going to know in the first half. Dallas is not built to come from behind. If the Rams come out and execute and get a lead, have a nice day, it's over. Dallas has to run the football. The defense is really good. They got to create some turnovers. Goff seemed to right the ship a little bit at the tail end of the season. Then you get Gurley with basically 3 weeks off, 2 games and a bye week. The guy should be fresh as a daisy, but he hasn't taken a hit in 3 weeks, so he's got to make sure he protects the football. But if the Rams get a lead, I just don't see any way, shape, or form Dallas can come from behind and win this game, because to me they still remain challenged in the red zone. They have to run it in. Either Elliott or Prescott's got to scramble and run it in. And, field goals aren't going to cut it here in a game against the Rams. Dallas is going to have to score touchdowns. If they get behind, they're in trouble.
Well, Dallas, a team that was 29th in touchdown percentage offensively in the red zone here during the regular season at 48%. Of course, they were 3 for 4 last week, which is ultimately the reason why they wound up beating Seattle, because they didn't settle for 3 and got 7s instead. So, this is also one of those games, too, though. Like the Kansas City game I just mentioned with Hill and Kelsey getting a chance to rest, the Rams had a bunch of injury concerns on the offensive line. Whitworth, Saffold, John Sullivan. So they were able to get healthy in the trenches, and that really helps here against this Dallas rush defense. Brian, the thing that I'm kind of interested in about this game, it's the playoffs, right? Everybody is completely motivated. You don't have to worry about focus or anything like that. But with the Rams, they've waited, 371 days to get back into the playoffs after that one and done dud last year against the Falcons. You got to think there's a little bit more of an edge for them here.
That and I think they're the better football team. The one thing to me would be the pressure of the moment, where you don't want that thing in the back of your mind going, oh no, here we go again. To me, it's all about coming out of the gate with a sense of purpose, and that offense. Let's just cut to the chase here. You bring up a great point. If that offensive line is healthy, that extra half second that they may provide against the fierce Dallas rush, when you're sitting there with Woods and Reynolds running underneath and Gurley with the swing pass option, if they get an extra half second, that's giving Cooks time to get downfield. When they're on top of their game, this is a video game offense.
All right, so let's go to Sunday here, and let's be very, very clear about this right at the outset. New England opened a 5-point favorite. The Chargers, everybody knows it, third road game in 3 weeks. The first one was in Denver in Week 17. Then they had to go out to Baltimore last week and play early, go all the way home, now come all the way back to Foxborough. That was built into the opening number. This is not something that catches the odds makers by surprise, because it's something that's very, very obvious about this game. And with that in mind, the Chargers have taken early money down from +5 to +4.
And listen, they've gotten a lot of love, and deservedly so. I think we saw during the course of the regular season, this is kind of a different Chargers team. A lot of times in recent years, they get behind, and Rivers would rack up big numbers and the big comeback in the fourth quarter, and they fall just short. Melvin Gordon's the key here. If he's healthy, that kid's a beast. Honestly, you can make a case when he's on the field, he's every bit as good as Todd Gurley. So if Gordon is good to go, big plus for the Chargers here. The one thing Adam, and it's a between-the-lines thing. Everybody's watching the Patriots, and, yeah, they don't look like Patriots teams in the past, and they're chinks in the armor. But here you go again, another year, a home game. I mean, that Philly-Houston game a while back where Houston came up short, Patriots get a bye, a win, and they're one game away from another Super Bowl, and now you give Belichick some time to prepare for an opponent that had a play last week. He's going to try to take, and he always does, take the Chargers' best weapon away. So the question is, what is that? Generally speaking, he'll shut down a wide receiver. Rivers is savvy enough. I mean, okay, they want to double cover Allen. The Rivers is savvy enough to find somebody else. I got to think that they say our best shot is go ahead. We'll take at home. We'll take Brady against Rivers in a shootout. So I think coming in is they are not going to let Melvin Gordon beat him. That would be my take.
Well, and let's keep something in mind here. I mean, obviously the Patriots great at home in the playoffs. We all know that. 19-3 straight up, but 12-9-1 against the spread. So, yes, they win a lot of games, but sometimes covering a little bit more difficult, usually because they wind up facing a big number. This number of -4 would be the lowest home playoff game line for the Patriots since January 10th of 2010 against the Baltimore Ravens. So if you think the Chargers are being disrespected in this game, you are dead wrong, because relative to what we've seen from the Patriots, this is the lowest line. And part of that, of course, is, New England doesn't look the same. But the Chargers are being accurately valued this weekend in this game as far as I'm concerned. The question that I have, like you said, Brian, is, what part of this game is taken away from the Chargers? Because there will be something, whether it's the running game with Gordon and Eckler and even Justin Jackson, or if it's Keenan Allen, something like that. What part of this game is taken away, and how do the Chargers adjust in the cold weather, playing for that third straight road game? I'm not sure. I do really wonder, how long the Chargers can withstand, what should be a pretty potent barrage from New England. Yeah, it wasn't pretty in the regular season, but as you said, they have a bye week. Again, as ugly as it was, they were a top 2 seed in the AFC. I mean, this is still a phenomenal franchise that, just schemes so well week in and week out. I have a hard time going against the Patriots here, and I understand the Chargers' money. I understand that some people think they're the best team in the NFL. It's hard for me to go against New England in this spot, though. And the only other little thing I'd look at here that you could maybe try to draw some sort of parallel, but it's a regular season game to a playoff game. But with rest, you look at the Patriots. They had 10 days off, played a Thursday game, then played the Chiefs with extra time to rest. And that was a 43-40 game. And the other one was they played the Jets at the Jets with 2 weeks to prepare, and they won on the road 27-13. Which might lead me to say I'd play this game over the total because Rivers will get hits. Even if they get down and New England takes their foot off the pedal a little bit, I'd be more inclined to see points in this game. I'm not doing a cartwheel about either team's defense. The other thing, and it may not be a big thing, I think maybe next week it would be if New England were to win this game. There's one guy that is going to benefit more than anybody, and I've always said this, the skill position players, even the best, Terrell Owens, Randy Moss in their heyday, were only a point and a half to the spread. I've always said this, when Gronkowski is in the lineup, he's worth 2.5 points to me, because in the red zone, they are a completely different team. And this guy can't even run back to the huddle. I mean, he's so beat up. That week's worth of rest, I would think Gronkowski could be a factor in this game, and that's a big edge for the Patriots. They're a different team when he's a massive component in the offensive scheme. One more game to hit on here for the divisional round. That is Philadelphia and New Orleans. Nick Foles and the Eagles survive by fingertips, basically, on that Cody Parkey partially blocked field goal attempt. The Saints, the last time they were in the playoffs, I mentioned the Rams and how long they've been waiting for this opportunity. Obviously for the Saints, who, by the way, in that Minneapolis Miracle game, we're down 17-0 at halftime. So keep that in mind. They did not play well in the first half of that game against the Vikings. Yes, they were in a position to win it. Yes, Marcus Williams blew that tackle, and it was one of the signature moments of the 2017 NFL playoffs. But, the Saints certainly chomping at the bit to get back into this spot. They're an 8-point favorite here for this one, Brian, total of 50.
I'm going under the total here, bud, and I'll just tell you, it's all about current form. And, going on the road at Washington, they shut out the Skins 24-zip. Last game of the year meant something to Philly. But then 16-15, say what you want about Trubisky and the Bears, but this defense has gotten healthy. And Jim Schwartz said this last week. I think this guy is the X factor. He's a terrific defensive coordinator, and that Eagles defense is healthy. First game, everybody's going to go, New Orleans killed them 48-7. New Orleans may kill them again, but I don't see any way, shape, or form this game is track meet city. I think the total is too high, and that's it. For me. I'm not going to discount Philly and the run they're on, but I just think from a pace of play perspective, everybody says, "Oh, there's a different team with Nick Foles." Okay, that's great. He's got a chemistry with Jeffries and Aguilar. They got the three-headed running back monster and all that stuff. The key here is the defense is healthy and playing at a really high level now, Adam. So, to me, and I think New Orleans defense at home can get the job done. It's going to be a loud place. I like it to be, I'm not saying 13-10, but I like the under.
Something I was kind of amazed about, and Drew Brees did not play well at the end of the regular season, so we'll see if the bye week helped him. Keep in mind, he's 39 years old. Maybe that was some, I don't want to say gamesmanship, but just a move by Sean Payton to kind of, keep him a little bit fresher here as we get later into the season, because the Saints did throw the football a little bit more early this year than they did last year with the Mark Ingram suspension and all that. But how about this? I was astonished to see this. This is only the 6th home game for New Orleans in the Drew Brees era dating back to 2006 in the playoffs. I could not believe that. And I think a lot of people are going to overvalue the Saints and probably overvalue the Saints offense, thinking, well, Drew Brees at home, and to be fair, in those 5 playoff games at home, the over is 5-0. But I do think that people will kind of overvalue what the Saints offense brings to the table with that Superdome factor in mind.
Hey, listen, they won a Super Bowl, okay? But the case can be made, as you said, that's like shocking to you. This is a team, and Drew Brees, as remarkable a career as he's had, last year, I think they win the Super Bowl last year, and then you get the Stephon Diggs play. I give them credit for coming all the way back with a sense of purpose, and they could win the whole thing. They were my pick to win it before the season. Spot on, bud. That you can make the case. Throughout his career, the Saints have been underachievers when on the big stage.
All right, let's transition over to the golf side of things here for a few minutes. I want to make sure we get to talk about that because we got an event here, the Sony Open in Hawaii. You did a video that's posted over on our YouTube page. Before we get into the picks that you like here, scout this course a little bit for us. Tell us what we're working with.
It's honestly, it's pretty pedestrian. There's not a lot of trouble there. It's way more narrow than Kapalua, their airport runways. So, hitting the fairway does matter here. Length is no big deal. They're accessible par fives. But again, it's Hawaii, and the wind can kick up there. So I think from a starting point, you look at guys with a track record on the course, and you look at guys that could be good wind players.
Well, it's something else here to keep in mind about this course. Obviously, last week in Hawaii at Kapalua in Maui, short little island trip here to Honolulu, but 14 of the last 20 winners of this event did play the event at Kapalua the week before. We've got 22 players from last week's event on hand here this week. So was that something that you were looking at as you were narrowing down the card, Brian?
Well, there's certainly some of those guys are in the equation. Generally speaking, Adam, my train of thought, we've done this now for a couple of years. I'm looking at 3-4 guys at some pretty decent numbers, and then you can readjust it in the meat of the tournament. And so, like, for argument's sake, last week had 4 guys, but when you've got 4 guys, if you hit, your average return on investment is in the 7, 8, 9 to 1 range. So, I always try to start 40 to 1 or higher, and then can readjust, because I can get, for argument's sake, the favorite's Justin Thomas. If Justin Thomas is 6 shots back on Friday night, he's going to be 18 to 1. Okay, I bet Justin Thomas at 18 to 1, 6 shots back with 36 hole to play. He shot a 59 on this course. So you can get the world-class player halfway through the tournament. Is basically, it's been my approach to this now for a number of years, and knock on wood, it's been successful.
So last week we only had 34 players. This week we've got a full field event here, so a lot more to handicap, a lot more guys you want to look at. I mean, obviously some of the triple-digit shots really don't have much of a chance in this tournament. You'll get those occasionally, but if you're going to start your handicap, I agree with Brian that you want to look. For me, it's kind of in that 25 to 40 to 1 range is where I first start looking. Then I start to add some guys after that. So who are some guys on your list here this weekend, Brian, that you like to make some noise here at Lake Country Club?
Well, since we did the video yesterday, I did mention him in the video, but I didn't talk about him as a play. I shot the video before the numbers come out, and and basically was pretty close to where the numbers would be. But you are getting an overlaid price on Jordan Spieth at 16 to 1. I think Spieth could come out of the gate here like a wild man. I mean, that was a down year for Jordan Spieth, and you'd like to think this guy spent the last 6 weeks doing a lot of hard work and some soul searching, and I can see Spieth having a big bounce back year. And trust me, he's 16 to 1. He wins this tournament, he's going to be, in the 8-10 to 1 range the rest of the way. So it wouldn't shock me if Spieth shows up. Leishman in Hawaii Wind played really good last week. Problem is 16 to 1. The number, that's a low number to play Mark Leishman. The guy, Webb Simpson played great on Sunday, and he was listed as in the field, but I do not see him on the board. So I wonder if something happened with Webb Simpson. I don't see him offered here. So he would have been a guy, because he had a great final round. But I'll tell you, there are a couple of guys, and again, it's a low number, but he's resurrected his game in the last year and a half. And even when he was god-awful, Charles Howell was always on the leaderboard at the Sony Open for some goofball reason. He played decent at Kapalua. So 25 to 1, Charles Howell is a guy you take a look at. Zach Johnson's won here before, has a good track record on the course off the shelf. 30 to 1, you got to at least give him credit for having played well here. I'm going off the beaten path, but I got a couple bombers. Ian Poulter's a different golfer. He's my new hero after the win at Houston, where I had him at 80 to 1. He shot 74, then a 63, and bet him again at 60 to 1 on Friday night. He came in and won, but he has sustained it since then. And Poulter at 60 to 1, he's a decent win player. And the crazy one, this is a leap of faith here. I bet him a little bit at the end of last year, but he kind of stubbed his toe. But Sung Jae Im is 80 to 1. And he's only 20 years old, Adam. And that's the thing. Early in the season, you're going to get, there was a day when Xander Schauffele was 80 to 1, right? And you got to try to be on these guys before anybody knows about them or before they have success. And he had 2 Web.com Tour victories, 2 tournaments in the fall series. He was 15 and 4. And then I played him over in the tournament, I guess it was in Korea on his home course, and he just had a bad day. I think Sung Jae Im at 80 to 1, I'm not going to be on the sidelines if this kid gets a win, and I'll go, why didn't I have him? So keep an eye out for Sung Jae Im at 80 to 1.
All right, I'll run down some of my thoughts on some of the guys you mentioned. The Webb Simpson thing is surprising because he's got 4 straight top 15 finishes in this event. So I am surprised he's sitting this one out. I do like Ian Poulter a little bit. I mentioned him in my DFS piece, not my preview piece. But this is also a course that it has a few links elements to it because the way it was designed, they wanted to pay homage to some of the other signature elements of courses, St. Andrews being one of them. So there are some links elements here, and you mentioned the wind as well. For Charles Howell, I looked this up this morning because I put him in the preview that I wrote, 19 straight rounds under par in the Sony Open. for Charles Howell III.
He loves the course.
He's very consistent here. And horse for course guys are something that you want to look at. I'll throw out a couple of names here on my end. Pat Perez, he's in the 55, 60 to 1 range, plays real well at coastal courses, has a win in Mexico at Mayakoba. He was 6th at Mayakoba earlier this year, 3rd in the Tournament of Champions 2 years ago, 4th at Pebble Beach in 2015. That's a guy that likes to play these coastal courses. And a lot of times, too, we mentioned Poulter, we mentioned Zach Johnson. It is a lot of older guys that tend to play well at these vacation destination types of courses.
I'm glad you mentioned Pat Perez, and 60 to 1 is a crazy number. The guy's a different golfer. I mean, he's a lunatic. If he miss a 3-footer, he'd all but snap the putter right over his knee. Now he kind of doesn't care. Okay, he has a completely different demeanor out there, and he's been on the leaderboard a lot in 2018. We'll see how he does the first 2 rounds. I wouldn't be adverse to playing him for the weekend, but I think you're onto something in that even before that mindset changed for him. And you mentioned Howell's number here at the Sony Open. Perez is a guy you always have to consider on the California circuit. Now, I don't see him being in the 60 to 1 range when they get to California. You might get 40, but Pebble Beach, the LA Open, Torrey Pines, that Pat Perez always used to show up in California and then disappear when they went to Florida. But I'll be watching for Perez in the early part of the season, but I'm not on him this week.
One other guy I like, Brian Harmon. He's 60 to 1, 14 of the last 16 rounds under par here at the Sony Open. Started 64, 63 last year, but then only went 2 under Saturday and Sunday. So 4 straight top 20 finishes for him. A lot of guys this week that I think can really be in the running. And Brian, again, I really like your strategy of, take some of these mid-range shots, and then in the event that a Justin Thomas is 5-6 shots back, or a Bryson DeChambeau, somebody like that, that's when you look to strike on those guys. I think that's a really good point here to make early in the golf season, because we're going to try to talk golf every week with Brian on the show, and I think it's a really valuable betting strategy for these tournaments.
Well, I mean, you know what it is, bud? It's a marathon, not a sprint. It really is. I mean, so knock on wood, okay, get Schauffele out of the gate. Literally, if you hit 2 golf tournaments over the course of the season, the rest of the year is pretty close to a free roll. It really is. That's the beauty of doing this.
Brian Blessing, the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. How can people check out those 2 shows, Brian?
Noon to 2, AM 1400 KSHP, noon to 2 Pacific time. And we've got Sportsbook Radio with all the top sportsbook directors in town. And then we do Vegas Hockey Hotline, which is Golden Knights-centric. But we talk a lot about the NHL. We have great guests from around the NHL. And the shows are archived at sportsbookradio.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Sportsbook Radio. And as you alluded to, Adam, always thrilled to come on the podcast with you. And we do videos for you at BangTheBook.com. We did dive into the divisional round of the playoffs, and we did do a video preview of the Sony Open, so we have fun doing those videos for you here from Las Vegas as well.
Yep, and you can find those over on our YouTube page, and you can find Brian on Twitter at Brian Blessing. Brian, appreciate the time. Good to get you back on the program here after a few weeks off, and we'll talk to you again next week.
I missed you, bud. I'm sure you enjoyed the break, but glad we're up and running again.